Good afternoon and welcome. This is Spotlight Africa, brought to you by Spectrum Television. I am Uyai coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Today on Spotlight Africa, former Prime Minister Yang chairs United Nations Assembly. Senegal's president promises to combat human trafficking after deadly shipwreck. Delegates from 30 African countries attend Nigeria AI conference. South African farmers accused of killing two women feeding bodies to pigs. Plus, flights grounded at Kenya's main airport as workers protest against Adani deal. These stories are all just ahead on Spotlight Africa. Stay with us. Thanks for joining us. First on Spotlight Africa, the former Cameroonian Prime Minister took over the presidency of the United Nations General Assembly, calling on the world's divided nations to come together and act to address global challenges from climate change to poverty, conflict and armed violence. Philemon Yang told the 193-member world body that there were doubts about the ability of nations to join forces to tackle these and other pressing issues. Yang, who is a former diplomat who had served as Prime Minister of his West African country from 2009 to 2019, said the cornerstone of his one-year presidency will be built on the principles of unity and diversity. He added that peace and security would continue to be of paramount importance during his presidency. Outgoing General Assembly President Dennis Francis has urged the United Nations was created from the ashes of World War II to live up to its mandate of maintaining international peace and security. In another development, United Nations Human Rights Deputy High Commissioner Nada al-Nashif said the warring parties in the Sudan conflict acting with total disregard for international law. Al-Nashif spoke at the session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, which is addressing various global issues, including political unrest, regression on women's rights, and freedom of press and expression. Recall that last week, UN-backed human rights investigators urged the creation of an independent and impartial force to protect civilians in Sudan's war, blaming both sides for war crimes, including murder, mutilation and torture, and warning that foreign governments which arm and finance them could be complicit. Meanwhile, the United Nations Security Council adopted a draft resolution on Wednesday that extends the sanctions on Sudan until September 2025. Now, the United Nations Security Council unanimously adopted a draft resolution extending the Sudan sanctions regime, including targeted sanctions such as asset freezes, travel bans, and an arms embargo until 12th of September 2025. The resolution is a technical rollover of measures previously renewed by Resolution 2676 in March of 2023. Sudan's representative Al-Harith Idris Al-Harith said there is irrefutable evidence that the war that they are experiencing is a result of the support of the UAE for militias that were committing war crimes and crimes against humanity in Darfur.
Renewing the sanctions measures will restrict the movement of arms into Darfur and sanction individuals and entities contributing to or complicit in destabilizing activities in Sudan. All of this is critical to helping end the escalating conflict, alleviate the humanitarian catastrophe, and put Sudan back on the path to stability and security. The United States remains committed to the Sudanese people and will continue to work closely with Sudan, colleagues on the Council, and all stakeholders to facilitate peace for the country and the region.
Away from that, 3 days after a devastating shipwreck off the coast of Moa, which claimed the lives of over 125 people, search operations for survivors continue, despite the slim chances of finding any. In response to the crisis, President Bashir Diomaye Faye visited Moa on Wednesday evening, visibly distressed by the severity of the situation. While the president has criticized human trafficking networks, there is growing frustration among the public with the new government's focus. Critics argue that the administration has failed to prioritize addressing the unemployment crisis among Senegalese youth. Moussa Diakhaté, a human rights specialist and member of parliament, has long warned of these issues but feels his concerns have been ignored. Meanwhile, a boat carrying migrants capsized off the coast of Senegal over the weekend, leaving at least 4 people dead and several others missing, local authorities said. Reports say the artisanal fishing boat left the town of Moa nearly 80 kilometers, 50 miles south of the capital, Dakar, heading to Europe on Sunday afternoon before capsizing a few miles off the coast. Amadou Diop, the district's prefect, told the Associated Press. Local fishermen rescued 3 people who were brought back to shore by naval authorities. Senegal's Navy is looking for those missing, adding that the exact number of passengers remained unknown. We're looking to Nigeria now, where tech leaders, academics, policymakers and entrepreneurs from across Africa and beyond have gathered to discuss the opportunities and challenges raised by the development and use of artificial intelligence, AI. The 2024 Pan-African AI Conference in Lagos, co-hosted by the United States, is seen as a significant step in Africa's technological future. In his opening remarks, Nigeria's Minister for Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Bosun Tijani, said Nigeria and the world must ensure the digital transformation journey is inclusive, equitable, and human-focused. Tijani also announced a $61,000 artificial intelligence fund for Nigeria's brightest AI startups. In a separate development, Congolese authorities said that 50,000 doses of smallpox vaccine from the United States arrived on Tuesday, a week after the first batch arrived from the European Union. Adults in Equator, South Kivu, and Sankuru, the 3 provinces most affected, will be vaccinated first, starting on October the 2nd. Chris Kasita Osako, coordinator of the Congolese Committee for the Fight Against Monkeypox, told the Associated Press. Last week, the first batch of smallpox vaccine arrived in the capital of Congo, the center of the epidemic. The 100,000 doses of GNO's vaccine, manufactured by the Danish company Bavarian Nordic, were donated by the European Union through HERA, the Union's agency for health emergencies. A further 100,000 doses were delivered over the weekend. Meanwhile, the 50,000 doses from the USA will be of the same GNS vaccine. To South Africa now, where 3 men are accused of killing 2 women and feeding their bodies to pigs on their farm in a case that has outraged the public. The men appeared in court Tuesday in the northern province of Limpopo. The state wants them to remain behind bars until their trial is concluded. Farm owner Zechariah Johannes Oliver, supervisor Andren Rudolph, and employee William Musora faced 2 counts of premeditated murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and possession of an unlicensed firearm. Musora, a Zimbabwean national, also faces charges of being in the country illegally. It is alleged that in August, a truck belonging to a dairy company dumped potentially expired goods at Oliver's farm, prompting the women, Lusadia Ndlovu and Maria MacArthur, to trespass and try to collect the products. Both were shot and killed. A man with them was injured and crawled to a nearby road to scream for help. He told police who found the women decomposed bodies in a pigsty. Several political parties protested outside Mekweng Magistrate Court, calling for the men to be denied bail and face the harshest possible sentence. The South African Human Rights Commission called on the public not to take the law into their hands in retaliation. Violent crimes on South Africa's farms have been a concern for years, including the killing of farmers by criminals and farmers' abuse of workers. We'll take a quick break now. When we return, we'll be joined by our guest to look into certain issues of economic and financial pressure on the continent. Stay with us. Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. Of course, it's still Spotlight Africa, and we're bringing you news all around the continent. In specifics, we'll be looking at the economic and financial performance of the continent in recent years. Because despite strong economic performance and remarkable resilience, structural transformation in Africa has been slow and uneven, and addressing this will require calling bold reforms of the global financial architecture now to meet Africa's development financing needs. Of course, we have a guest who is joining us to take us through the economic standing of Africa as it stands. Dr. Uduak Akpan is joining us all the way from London this afternoon, who is an accomplished and versatile development economist with a strong research background and extensive professional experience in energy economics and development economics. Thank you very much, Uduak Akpan, for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good to have you. Okay, so we are talking Africa and our very, very diversified economy. I'd like to start by saying a very rich people, yet so poor. Maybe a function of management or mismanagement, I should say. But let's look at, some of the promises that, the continent actually has where finances and the economy is concerned. We see that we've had quite a good outlook for 2024. But as opposed to the growth that, some of the indicators measured for us, we were supposed to be having a 3.1 percentile increase in our economic growth for 2024. But it looks like we have even dropped behind 2023. What does the continent's economy look like for you from where you stand via research?
Okay, thank you very much again. First, it's usually difficult to discuss Africa as a whole because it's made up of 54 different countries with very diverse local circumstances. And there are some countries that are doing amazingly well. There are some countries that are lagging behind. And on the whole, Africa is behind. The world is moving very fast. And we probably need to triple our growth rates to be able to even catch up with where the world is going.
Okay, so that's a major concern. Now we know that we have a lot of gaps. You've acknowledged the fact that yes, there's some countries on the continent that are doing well, but holistically, if we look at our economic performance as opposed to where the West or even the East currently are, we seem to be really, really behind, and we have this dependence on borrowings. How do you think this is this is affecting our our growth rate, especially with the current look on inflation on the continent?
Oh, thank you. Now, the thing we need to understand about the mechanics of economic development is that no country develops without building sufficient productive capacity. Now, productive capacity essentially means the capacity to produce goods and services that are tradable internationally. If you don't have that capacity to produce goods and services, then you would be dependent on imports. And that means the balance of trade and balance of payments would be negative, and that would essentially make your economy to be weak. In today's world, you need to produce, you need to compete internationally, you need to have tradable goods, you need to have value-added goods that you can trade internationally. That's how the reality of the world is today.
So we're increasingly seeing, global presence on Africa, trying to tap into our natural resource. So we have, some really backward African countries that have a lot of natural resources that the global West is actually benefiting from. But how can we partner favorably for our economies with the global West, as it were?
The thing is, nobody is here to do anybody a favor. The reality of the economy is that everybody has its vested interests. Countries have firms. It is firms that do investments. Those firms are not there to do charity to any country. The firms need resources to fetch back to their home countries to supply to other firms, who will then transform these commodities to value-added inputs into different value chains that are then used to produce diverse kinds of commodities, goods, and services to export even to African countries. And so the thing is, African countries need to build capacity to absorb technology. They need to build the capacity to produce and to absorb technology. And that is essentially the only way. That is what every other country that has developed has done. Building firms with sufficient capacity to be able to produce goods and services that are tradable globally.
In what you have just said, I see, a fault. It looks like Africa does not have the right policies in place to actually defend its side of the bargain, because you have said nobody's coming to play on the table, but it looks like Africa is not fully aware of this reality. Because how do we let these people come mine, all kinds of things that they do on the continent? They seem to earn more than we do in all of these transactions. How do you think that Africa can actually build up the capacity to build a better economic and financial structure on the continent?
It still boils down to the same thing. It's about having knowledge. You need to know knowledge of what is on the ground. So first of all, so I'm focusing on mining, so primary commodities. Many African countries don't even understand what is beneath their soils. And if you don't even understand what is beneath your soil, you don't even know the value of what you have. And then it now goes to the quality of legal agreements signed by countries and quality of legal agreements signed by firms in these countries. And if you don't understand how the different aspects of the transactions operate, you don't have knowledge and skills on the mining, on the yield of whichever resources, it means that you are going to be at the weaker end of the bargain. And firms are there to make profits. Firms are accountable to their shareholders and not to the host countries. And it means the more firms are profitable, the better the shareholders would give them more commendations.
Okay, so let's look at policies on the continent. Now we're seeing that with guidelines from the IMF and from the World Bank, we've continued to see more central banks in Africa try to tighten their monetary policy, and which to a very large extent have seemed to worsen several financial conditions for the continent. What do you think, how can we diversify from some of these steps that we've taken? It's affecting investment, firm productivity, and output growth.
Okay, the thing is this, countries need to earn foreign exchange. And that is at the center of monetary policies, because you need foreign exchange to import a variety of goods and services. You need foreign exchange to pay debts. And it's good to understand that the economy is a very complex system. And so by tightening monetary policies, for example, increasing the monetary policy rates, for example, in Nigeria, that automatically pushes up the lending rates and by extension the inflation, and that makes more people poorer. Of course, the arguments that are usually painted is that it's to curb inflation, but there are so many variables in play, and sometimes the quality of the data to really show that by doing by taking some of these actions is going to curb inflation, the quality of data is poor. If all the variables are considered, perhaps these may be wrong decisions.
Okay, so wrong decisions is you say majorly keeping us where we are. But okay, another thing that is a major concern where the economics of Africa is the sovereign debt management challenges that we have. A lot of us are indebted to these global financiers, and it's further driving us into poverty. Do you think that there are, better ways for us to leverage in this transaction? You've already established that we need these partnerships to even grow, but are there better leverages for Africa generally instead of further driving us into more debt?
So the thing is, countries borrow to pay debts, and the cycle keeps on going. And the only way to pay debts is to earn foreign exchange, and to earn it in to earn higher amounts of foreign exchange. And how do you earn foreign exchange? You only earn foreign exchange by trading, by exporting. But most African countries export only primary commodities, which have low value. So the first thing is countries must learn how to support firms to carry out value addition of their commodities. And it's only by carrying out these different value addition that your commodity can earn higher value in the commodity market. So these are things that countries have to do. Support improve value addition in virtually all the commodities you export.
So you have made a mention. I'm wondering, what are some of the things that we should rather export in higher quantities to increase our forex availability on the continent? We have a lot of things, and one would think that we're favorably trading. What would you say that Africa should rather trade more, and how should they trade to have more forex availability?
It's not a matter of quantity, it's a matter of value. So it's like saying 1 ton of raw mineral and 1 ton of processed mineral. The value in the market, it's significantly different. And so the important thing is to add value and to support productive transformation of the countries by creating an environment that firms can be more competitive.
So that's policies. We have issues of policies then, and policies are a remarkable problem on the continent. So we are looking at issues like intra-African trade policies, because not only are we not favorably trading with the West and or the global space, we are not even trading favorably within the continent. So Nigeria is not trading well with Niger, with Burkina Faso, and the likes of that. How can we actually drive, an increase in, the trade level within Africa on its own? And do you think trade increase on the continent will impact upon our economic stability?
Yes, I mean, one has to really contextualize the argument. The first point is that it is firms that trade and not necessarily countries. What is reported as aggregate trade, it's what the firms within the country have trade for any given year. So it is firms that trade. So I'm going to give an example. If I'm producing, let's say, furniture in Nigeria, and I have a demand in the UK, and the demand is for $100,000. Would I prefer to send to Benin Republic or to Cameroon if they're not going to pay up to that amount? The answer is no. That's on the one hand. On the other hand is that the cost of lack of infrastructure to even commute. It might interest you that it is very difficult to even take a flight from Nigeria to Cameroon. Most often, to access most cities in Cameroon from Nigeria, you need to go to Cote d'Ivoire. So even the basic communications are not even there. Then how would trade be possible? In theory, having a bigger market makes sense, but that is still in theory. In the reality, there are so many setbacks to having a bigger market, and these basic setbacks have not been addressed. I mean, even Mr. Liko Dangote stated that he needs 35 visas on his passport as Africa's richest man to even go across Africa. So if the basic things cannot be addressed, then every other talks about in the interregional trade, it's just a mirage.
So we've had a call for education and infrastructural development on the continent to grow our economy. Just to wrap this off in a moment, we have a need to strengthen these institutions to create a more business-friendly environment. So with policies and everything intertwined, what would be your last words leaving for leaders and business persons on the continent? Because I don't think it's just a government thing. What should business owners and investors on the continent do to grow the economy?
Every country that has developed in the past 30 years has done that as a result of a strong support of a developmental state. The political economy of most countries in Africa, especially Nigeria, is such that development will be difficult. It is political leaders that drive developmental decisions. Nobody would just come to Nigeria and invest, let's say, $5 billion without a firm commitment of the president. Not when there are other countries that the presidents of those countries are inviting them to invest and giving them lots of reassurances. So we need to fix political economy of Nigeria, and I think that is the single largest barrier to development. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So the political environment in Africa is grossly affecting our economic growth. Thank you so much, Dr. Uduak, for coming on the show. Of course, we've been speaking to Dr. Uduak Akpan all the way from London this afternoon, looking at the economy of the continent. We do hope that we can make some of the corrections that he's pointed out on the show this afternoon. Thank you so much for your time.
It's okay. Thank you for having me.
All right, do enjoy the rest of your day. Well, the economic growth of the continent is widely in our hands. Let's see how much we can invest as a people and how much our leaders can leverage on policies to give us a better business environment. This is the march we can absolutely take on Spotlight Africa this Thursday afternoon. We do hope that you'll be a part of it when next we pop on your screens. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation today. I am Uyai MM. Do enjoy the rest of your day.